I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, Qualcomm agrees to pay nearly $1 billion in fines to China. The measles outbreak grows across the country, and the state takes action to protect our underground water supply. San Diego gangs are using women to act as pimps and enforcers in the sex trade. We talk with one of those women tonight.
And how much more pay will San Diego police officers get if the city's deal is ratified? I'm Peggy Pico with the details and impact of the police compensation plan. Plus, lose 100,000 pounds by March? Why there's a collective weight loss challenge for the Imperial Valley and its residents. Then,
every community, the developer tries to sell it in some way, some unique thing that sets it apart. But
about San Diego's Ken Kramer dishes about himself and his show as the newest inductee to the KPBS Hall of Fame.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Qualcomm says it will pay nearly $1 billion in fines to China after the Chinese government found the company violated its anti-monopoly laws. Qualcomm says it will also change its licensing practices in China. The company says the fine will reduce its earnings for the last fiscal year. The number of measles cases in the U.S. is now up to 121 tonight, and the Centers for Disease Control says most of them are related to the outbreak at Disney parks in Anaheim. CDC says the disease has spread to 17 states. California has the most cases, and the majority of the people who got it were not vaccinated. State regulators are proposing big changes in how they protect California drinking water and oil field waste. An Associated Press review found the state issued thousands of permits to oil and gas companies, letting them inject wastewater into underground water supplies. Regulators are now making plans to deal with current injection sites and to stop future permits. Cargo traffic is moving again, but the labor dispute between dock workers continues and tension is mounting. The Maritime Association blames union workers for slow-moving cargo and hired non-union workers over the weekend to free up space. The Dock Workers Union condemned the hiring of non-union workers and the accusations of slow-moving cargo. Contract talks, by the way, have dragged since last July. A $92 million deal to raise salaries and benefits for San Diego police could be ratified this week. Peggy Pico takes a closer look at the deal and its potential impact.
The compensation agreement would increase police officer pay and benefits over the next 5 years with the intent of retaining veteran officers and recruiting new ones. Here with the details are my guests, San Diego Police Chief Shellie Zimmerman and Brian Marvel, President of the San Diego Police Officers Association. And Brian, last year, a city-funded salary survey found that San Diego Police Department, the pay there, was less than many other law enforcement agencies throughout the state. Specifically, how would this deal fix that problem?
Well, what we tried to do was we looked at the market for San Diego police officers, and obviously one of our biggest competitors here in the county, the San Diego Sheriff's Office. So what we tried to do is craft a deal that would make it as competitive as possible under the confines that we had, the non-pensionable and pensionable at the end, that would make us competitive with the Sheriff's Office. So on July 1, 2015, there will be no financial incentive for one of our officers to go over there.
And we'll talk about the finances a little bit more, but Chief Zimmerman, the number of police officers on the force right now is actually less than the city has budgeted for. How many police officers do you have, and why are you short?
Well, we're budgeted for 2013 right now, but we're trying to get back to 2129, which was the number of budgeted officers before we started the cuts back in 2009. And we're 183 below our budgeted staffing right now. And so, what happened last year, as an example, is that we were able to hire 160 officers, but 162 left for a variety of reasons, which included going to other law enforcement agencies. So that's why this is important.
In talking about going to other agencies, because that's part of the salary issue that was brought up in the survey, how many, do you know how many police officers left because they went to other agencies?
If you take this fiscal year right now, and which started on July 1, we've had 16, a minimum, because you're not required to say why you've left our police department, but a minimum of 16 have said that they've left for other law enforcement agencies. 14 of the 16 had been local, and the majority going to the sheriff's department.
Did they say because of salary, or they didn't say?
Because of take-home pay. Yes, they did say, and it was because of the take-home pay, the total compensation. You know, a lot of the officers had told me that they didn't have to take their kids out of school, and all they did was change uniforms, and in many cases they were making more than $1,000 a month take-home pay.
Brian, this deal calls for a 6.6% raise over the next 5 years. 6.6%. Is that really enough money for San Diego police officers to be competitive with other agencies?
Well, the 6.6 covers the last 2 years of the contract, where the actual salary increase is 3.3 for each respective year. That is really what we're talking about. There are other financial incentives through health care, uniform allowance, and time off that actually in the first 3 years makes it financial for officers to get more take-home pay. So
the $92 million contract, that's the cost of this contract. $62 million of that, I understand, is going to be what they say at, quote, new costs. So, Brian, let me ask you this. What will that money be spent on?
Well, that's part of the financial incentive. During the first 3 years, it's non-pensionable to actually increase the amount of take-home pay that officers get. Part of the last 2 years, which is the general salary increases, plus some of the bonuses that were incorporated in the first 3 years, also carry over into the last 2 years.
And anything else with that? Uniforms, things like that?
There's something in here for everybody, because that's correct, is that uniform, additional pay for uniforms, but also for our recruits. There's going to be money in there for our recruits that they don't have to have the outlay of the money for their equipment, for their uniforms.
So we're talking about that pay, and I'll direct this to you, Brian, but the salary increases actually won't take effect till 2018?
That's correct. The last 2 fiscal years is when the salary increases, and that's trying to keep it within the confines of what Proposition B, the citizens of San Diego, said no pensionable pay raise until after that. So that's when those will kick in. So within those 3 years, we found other ways and methods to actually increase take-home pay for the officers.
And Chief Zimmerman, as you said, as Brian was saying, this police contract runs through July of this year, right? July of 2015. The City Council and the 1,800 union members for the police union need to ratify this deal.
Correct.
And if they do, when would police officers see their salaries increase and these benefits all kick in fully?
After it's ratified by the Police Officers Association for the members to vote on it, then it goes back to City Council to vote on it, and then it would take effect on July 1 of 2015.
Okay, and Brian, how are the police officers you've spoken to, how are they reacting to this?
We're getting, overall, we're getting a very good message from them. I think a lot of them are very supportive of this. There's some officers that, they don't necessarily see what they would like to see, but the reality is we crafted something that was very targeted to make sure that we retain the best officers we have.
All right, Police Union President Brian Marvel and San Diego Police Chief Shellie Zimmerman, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
A progressive national security organization is launching a new chapter in San Diego. The Truman Project is a network of veterans, civilians, and policymakers dedicated to addressing the security challenges facing our region and the world.
Whether we're talking about immigration, homelessness, whatever the issue is, we're going to look at it from a national security perspective.
I hope this idea of finding local leaders who are getting things done in their states and their cities and communities catches on.
San Diego is home to the largest concentration of military forces in the world, and the Truman Project, named after the 33rd President of the U.S., is devoted to training up community leaders to provide a voice in the nation's capital. Michael Breen is executive director.
One of the things we're really proud of at Truman is providing a channel for returning veterans coming back from the battlefield to step forward into public service in a whole host of ways, as business leaders, as political leaders, as civic leaders, and San Diego is a real example of a place that does that.
3 San Diegans were named to the Truman Board, including Marine veteran and former state representative Nathan Fletcher. San Diego officials say launching a chapter here just makes sense. We have the 3rd largest veterans population in the country and some of the brightest national security minds as well. San Diego gangs are using women to take on their pimping duties, but these women are not madams, they're enforcers, and they reap none of the profits. KPBS investigative reporter Amitha Sharma brings us the story, but first a warning, it contains graphic language and some disturbing content.
The women who help pimps sell girls are called bottoms. Mary Ellen Barrett is the San Diego County prosecutor.
The bottom is down for the pimp is the most down for the pimp, which down being a good word. So then she'd be at the bottom because she's the most down.
I became a bottom in 2011.
Meet Jill, too afraid to use her real name in case her former pimps come after her. Jill says she rose to the bottom because she was skilled.
All the P's or pimps that I dealt with made it very clear to everyone that I was the baddest, baddest bitch out there.
Why? What did it mean?
Pretty much that I knew how to get money. I knew how to manipulate the Johns into paying me whatever I wanted them to pay me.
But Jill never saw the approximate $2,500 she says she earned per day from sleeping with 5 to 7 men. But her pimp recognized Jill's worth, she says, by delegating his work to her. He recruited girls she trained.
I took them to the neighborhoods, showed them what to do as far as don't flag no one down. You got to walk back and forth. You got to make circles.
Jill says her pimp preyed on girls who needed money for food, clothes, or drugs. She says she regrets her role in turning them into sex trafficking victims.
It hurt me. It hurt me in a lot of ways because some of these girls were not even old enough to understand what it was to be a prostitute. And I look back in my mind to when I was 11 and 12 years old, and my mom was doing the same thing to me. Today, I look back at that, and I wish I could turn back the hands of time.
Jill says her mother first sexually trafficked her when she was 11 in exchange for drugs. Jill, now 32, became a bottom after years of working with different pimps. FBI agent Robert Howe calls that track a path of endurance.
A bottom is typically a young lady who has survived through the victimization of prostitution as a minor for a number of years and graduated, so to speak, into a position of responsibility for a male who we refer to as a pimp, but in reality as a violent pedophile.
Not only are they violent pedophiles, Barrett says pimps use the women as shields from police.
The pimp has the deniability. I don't know what she was doing. I wasn't doing that. That wasn't me. And then it's the woman that takes the fall.
Statistics are non-existent on how many bottoms there are in San Diego County, but Barrett says they're beginning to see more women involved in the logistical end of pimping in larger gangs. Barrett says many bottoms are effective at luring new girls by befriending them at continuation schools, bus and trolley stops, and malls. They can also be brutal enforcers of the pimp's rules. Since many of the women were trafficked themselves, prosecutors find it hard to determine the line between victim and perpetrator. Barrett says it's also tough to get bottoms to turn on a pimp, but many have their limits.
Bringing in a 16-year-old is tolerable, bringing in a 12-year-old is not. Beating is okay, breaking bones is not. Denying food is fine, but not to the baby.
Jill says she remained in her pimp's clutches, off and on, for almost 2 decades because she was often high on methamphetamine and crack cocaine.
Deep down inside, it was like I was dying. I wanted out, and I didn't know how.
What do you mean you were dying?
Like, I felt like I was just a walking piece of meat.
She says she reached her threshold during her pregnancy with her daughter 18 months ago.
6 weeks before my daughter was born, I quit everything. I quit drugs, I quit hoeing, I quit spending my days in hotels, I quit having contact with any drug dealers, and I moved into a homeless shelter and got myself together.
Today, Jill holds down 3 jobs, including one as a mentor to troubled teens. Meanwhile, investigators say they're getting better at spotting women like Jill as they break up more human trafficking gangs. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
Radio Shack is shutting down 9 of its 34 stores in San Diego County. It's part of a bankruptcy filing by the 95-year-old company. More than 1,700 Radio Shack stores will close nationwide. The remaining locations will be sold to Sprint and a hedge fund that was Radio Shack's biggest investor. A nonprofit watchdog is taking legal action against more than 20 electronic cigarette companies. The Center for Environmental Health says e-cigarettes contain nicotine, but the center says the products have no warning labels and violate state law. E-cigarette makers contend their products have no harmful ingredients. Imperial Valley is embarking on a major community challenge to collectively lose 100,000 pounds by the end of March. Peggy Pico explains how they plan to do it.
Imperial Valley Press started the Valley Challenge as a way to reduce Imperial County's obesity problem. Today, nearly 80% of adults and 40% of kids are obese or overweight. Here with the details are my guests, Deputy Director for Imperial County Public Health, Jeanette Angelo, and the paper's publisher, Gerard Delaney. Welcome. Gerard, you're in the newspaper business, so why did you start a weight loss challenge?
It was a way for us to outreach to the community, and we try to do something which would impact every single person in the valley. And with a high obesity rate like we have, we thought it was a good opportunity to reach everyone.
So it started in January, it's running through March. Are you getting a lot of response? How many people have signed up?
We had over 600 people signed up already, but there's a lot more people doing it because we've seen the activities they've had. We've had 5K runs, we've had things like that. A lot of people showing up for it, and it's just a talk of the town lately. But it's not going to end in March. We're going to continue this thing throughout the entire year.
Okay, so that 100,000 pounds by March is sort of just to grab your attention.
That's the hook.
Collectively, not one person, of course.
Exactly.
Jeanette, why are obesity rates so high in Imperial County? Are there some contributing factors to that region?
Well, there's no simple answer. There's definitely factors that affect overweight and obesity rates, such as the unemployment, the poverty rates, definitely genetics. We also have the environment. Gerard was mentioning, 6 months of the year we have wonderful weather, but the other 6 months it's definitely hot in Imperial County.
Sure, over the 100, so maybe people don't get out. Is that maybe the connection?
It could be. It could be. We also work with cities, county, and other entities so that we can get that infrastructure, make the environment more walkable, make the environment more bikeable.
Well, that makes me think, are there other programs in the county that are dealing with this obesity problem and trying to help people?
Definitely. Over the last couple of years, we've had different organizations, tackle this issue, and by implementing program strategies that address the entire community, not only the individual with nutrition education, but more the larger community.
What kind of impact are those programs making?
Definitely, we're instilling the use of gardens at preschools, starting at a younger age with the kids. So we're working with child care centers. We're definitely working with the Transportation Commission, the Southern California Association of Governments, looking at the safe routes to school and looking at ways to improve our environment. Like I said, to make it more walkable, more bikeable, definitely.
And Gerard, how are you tracking the progress of the people that have signed up for the challenge, the 600 people, and you said possibly a lot more?
Yeah, well, the ones who signed up have signed up on a website called thevalleychallenge.com, and you put in your starting weight and your goal weight. You can track your activities, your calorie count, your sleep, and things along those lines.
Are you working with the county? Are there other hospitals and organizations helping to support this challenge?
Yeah, this has been a fantastic challenge for us. The county public health department has been a fantastic partner. So has the two major hospitals, the ECRMC and Pioneers, as well as the county itself, the cities of Imperial, El Centro, and Brawley have stepped up. A lot of people really stepped up to this challenge because it affects everybody.
What do you, speaking of challenges, what do you see the challenges of getting the message out to the entire Imperial Valley, to the county residents there, that this is something that needs to be addressed?
I think everyone kind of knows it. I mean, if perhaps they don't have to lose a little weight or be a little healthier, but somebody in their family has to. is affected by this. And, one person in particular, I talked to him the other day, he had suffered a heart attack. He's in fantastic shape. So he wrote a story for our paper about how to avoid a heart attack, what he's done afterwards. There's a lot of different aspects to this.
Do you think, Jeanette, that there will be a long-term impact for this Valley Challenge, or do you think it's sort of maybe just a kickoff thing?
No, definitely. I really think we're making progress towards, making our community healthier, making change happen. And we've seen a slight decrease in our obesity rates, overweight to obesity rates in children 5 to 19. So there's a lot ahead of us. It's not a simple answer. It's going to take a couple of years before we can actually say, you know what, definitely.
And Gerard, is there any follow-up? You said this, you plan on going beyond March. Are you linking up with places that will do follow-up? Let's say these people do reach their weight loss goals.
Well, part of it's weight loss. Most of it is about attitudinal change, lifestyle changes, and just making a healthy choice. If you're going to have a burger or you're going to have a salad, let's choose a salad.
Sure, but just to go on this, Jeanette, so any follow-up as far as when these challenges or these programs is there a way to, people who have started or embarked on this journey, a way to follow up with them with programs in the county or various other places?
That would be a matter of talking to Gerard, since this is a project.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Well, they'll have to go to your website then again and find out about that. Gerard Delaney and Jeanette Angelo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, a documentary series tackles the problems of gender oppression at home and around the globe. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
Efforts to save the monarch butterfly got a boost today. The federal government pledging more than $3 million to restore habitat where the butterfly migrates, including California and the Midwest. The money would also start a conservation fund for farmers and landowners. Advocates hope the butterfly will also get listed on the Endangered Species Act for greater protection. There's been a 90% decline in monarchs in the last few years. We are expecting a warm-up over the next few days here in San Diego. There's a high surf advisory up at the beaches until late afternoon tomorrow along the coast. Temperatures will get into the upper 70s, looks like. Mid-70s to upper 80s in the inland valleys over the next few days with a mix of sun and clouds. Mostly 60s in the mountain areas with lots of sunshine. And sunny in the desert, except Thursday, with temperatures in the mid to low 80s. San Diego City Council is declaring this Ken Kramer Day. The host of About San Diego has explored the city's quirky and little-known historical secrets for more than 40 years. He joins Peggy Pico to talk a bit about himself and his legacy in San Diego.
Decades of intimate stories and details about where we live truly made San Diego a home for those who like to know things like this.
Every community, the developer tries to sell it in some way, some unique thing that sets it apart. But the sidewalk? Who'd think of that as anything special? It's just a slab of kind of bland concrete.
In fact, the official city color for sidewalks in San Diego is Portland gray. Well, 90 years ago, one neighborhood said, nope, we're going to try something different.
Pink sidewalks. Well, sort of pink anyway.
It's my pleasure to welcome my colleague and dear friend About San Diego's Ken Kramer. Good to see you, Ken.
Oh, Peggy, this is wonderful.
It's
Thank
a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah.
Now, congratulations. You've been doing this for a really, really, really long time.
Really long time.
When did you start doing About San Diego, and how did this idea come about?
It was back in the last century.
No, it was. Well, I guess it was.
In 1972. And I grew up in L.A., watching a station you may be familiar with, which is now KCBS, but used to be KNXT. And there was a guy on there named Ralph Story, and he did these wonderful stories about Los Angeles. And I just gravitated toward that style, and he and I became friends, and he's a bit of my mentor.
And so you sort of brought that here to San Diego, and we're so glad you did. Now, I happen to know that as a kid, you built a radio station in your bedroom. What was it about broadcast, be it radio or TV, that you fell in love with as a kid?
Just the romance of it, the idea that you could sit there and tune the radio at night, and stations would come in from faraway places. It's all very homogenized now, but you could hear different voices, and you could hear people talking about Bob's Barber Shop and these different places. I just fell in love not only with the idea of the programming, but the idea that electrons could go from that tower with the blinking light in the little town all the way across the country to my little radio. So I fell in love with the technical side and the programming side, the storytelling.
Now, you started here as a student at KPBS, and then you reported for DC, NPR, many TV stations, including NBC San Diego,
Right.
where I got to meet you, and you did About San Diego there. So I have to ask you this, your favorite About San Diego episode?
I think it's the one where we found this place in Kensington where a man bought the house and learned that as he was buying the house that the previous owner had this obsession with digging. And so he, the previous owner, started digging a barbecue pit one day and just got carried away. And underneath this house are like 700 feet of rooms and 700 feet of tunnels.
Sure.
And 7 big rooms. It's just the most amazing thing ever. That was fun.
And they're going to have to watch that. So Ken
Yeah.
Kramer's About San Diego it will return to KPBS TV in late of May. And Ken, congratulations.
Thanks very much. I'm really enjoying Ken Kramer Day.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. San Diego Zoological Society has scored some big victories in saving species from extinctions like the California condor, but now they're on the verge of losing a battle. We'll look at their fight to save the northern white rhino. And then on KPBS Midday Edition at noon, the personal belief exemption has allowed thousands of California kids to go to school without being vaccinated. Some lawmakers want to see the end of that exemption. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.